It's Dress Down Friday, folks. I got my t-shirt on today.
It's Thursday.
Oh, okay, well, we'll see how, well, it's Dress Down Thursday and Friday this week.
Well, the Fallon Forum pioneers a new idea, Dress
Down Thursday. Actually, we kind of pioneer that on every day, don't we? Hey, we got a lot to talk about today. Ron Yarnell's in the studio, and of course, once Ron's in the studio, who knows where the conversation will go. But we want to start with talking about the March on Washington. Really a huge milestone in our nation's history. I mean, a lot has happened in 50 years, a lot of very positive changes. Lest you get thoroughly discouraged, as Ron is inclined to do, I remind you, a lot has been accomplished in 50 years. Not to deny that there is still a long ways to go when it comes to full equality for African Americans in this society, but we've done a lot. We've come a long ways. But it seems that efforts by the Republican Party to try to reach out to new constituencies just seem to be falling flat at every... And it isn't just Steve King that ruins it for them. It's their own leadership sometimes. I mean, am I understanding this correctly, that John Boehner, Eric Cantor, others were invited to the commemoration?
They found other places to be. Now, you could call that a boycott. You could call it not. You can give plausible deniability. The bottom line is that the 2013 Republican Party stands diametrically opposed to everything the original March on Washington stood for.
Well, surely they had to have this on their calendar. I mean, we've known that there would be a 50-year commemoration 50 years ago.
And that's why they didn't even want to accidentally be there.
Right.
Okay, they may have walked through the National Mall and someone took a picture of them, and that would bring them into
taint their reputation
with their constituency.
Yeah, because they are seen in public at an event where Barack Obama is.
Also they cannot
association with King.
Now, I'm not talking about the Republican Party of the 1960s. There were a lot of Republicans in the 1960s that were actually key in the civil rights legislation. But the current Republican Party was founded in direct opposition to the civil rights movement. Okay,
it wasn't founded; it was corrupted. I mean, there was a Republican Party that you and I could probably respect at one point.
It evolved in that direction. I mean, I was, believe it or not, at one point in my life, I was a Republican. I became a Republican because I understood it to be the party of Lincoln.
I became a Republican once too.
I know.
For just under 24 hours.
I know, and it still shows.
The scars have healed. Come on.
I was glad to be a Republican because it stood for Lincoln. It stood for Yankee values. It stood for a lot of good stuff. And now it's just this amazing conglomeration of neo-Confederate philosophy, and they can't afford to be seen at a commemoration of the March on Washington.
Well, and I think they can't afford not to, but they don't get that. They haven't figured that out.
No, because
Boehner and Cantor figured out that Steve King is liability.
They have placed their bets with a constituency that hates, despises, loathes, and is in opposition to everything the March on Washington stood for.
And the key word in what you just said was a constituency, a political party. Political change is not built on a constituency. It's built on a coalition of constituencies.
The Republicans think it is.
Boehner realizes that. That's why he chastised Steve King in really strong language.
How well is he doing? How is John doing?
Not great, but he gets it enough to know that you've got to reach out to immigrants through at least participating in immigration reform. You've got to reach out to gay and lesbian people.
How's that going to fly with the folks who vote for Steve King?
Again, King is vulnerable in a Republican primary. You put up a good, strong Republican opponent like he had back in 2000.
Who is that Republican opponent?
Well, I mean, Brent Seeger's...
Why don't you go back to being a Republican?
No, because I would not be the right candidate. You want a true dyed-in-the-wool Republican who may even be a conservative Republican, but at least he's not a political embarrassment like Steve King is.
I would also argue whatever philosophy the Republicans are running under these days, it's not conservatism.
It's not. No, it's not. It's a reactionary mix of corporatocracy
it's something
and theocracy.
That's very twisted and very bizarre, and it doesn't. They will say that Oh, I don't know what Republicans will say. I won't speak for them. But they clearly did not want to be seen on the same stage as Barack Obama, and they did not want to give credence because, generally speaking, the 2013 Republican Party is not in favor of poor people marching on centers of power with their grievances.
Right. They're not in favor of that, but they also know that they have to reach out to at least some elements of the disenfranchised majority constituencies.
Who knows that? Who comes out and has said that?
But again, I'm just saying, look at some of the things that Boehner and Cantor, Karl Rove, even look at other leaders, and even in this state, Branstad, Doug Gross, Chris Rance.
Okay.
They're leaders. Let me finish.
Who's the great African American hope in the Republican Party?
I'm going to answer your question. There are leaders in the Republican Party who have continued to try to make the case for reaching out to other constituencies. That's why I don't get it, because this was a perfect opportunity to show that they were on board with at least talking with African Americans, and they blew it.
I understand perfectly why they didn't show their faces.
I don't.
I think it's because they are not a party that regards the March on Washington as a event worthy of commemoration. It is to them, it is an event worthy of mourning.
Now, you yourself said back in the 1960s there were Republicans who were part of the bipartisan deal that became both the Civil Rights Act.
In the 1960s, an interesting thing happened. The Republicans and the Democrats entirely swapped positions on civil rights.
Let me finish again. They were on board back then. Okay,
they were leaders.
They were on board back then, and somewhere along the line they lost their way.
Right.
But there are people now, there are leaders in the party now who know that they have to get.
Who are those leaders?
I just gave you some examples and some reasons why.
Boehner's he's
chastising King the way he did. Clearly, he gets it. Cantor gets it. Karl Rove gets it. Chris Rance's comments after the last election. He gets it.
Is it just a matter of political pragmatism?
Maybe, but that doesn't matter. If it's political pragmatism, why weren't they there? This was not a very pragmatic decision to boycott the commemoration.
But it speaks to who the Republican Party is as an institution today.
Okay, but it does not speak to the reality that they understand they have to change.
No,
That's why
they don't understand that at all. They say they do, but they don't in their heart of hearts. They're looking for that supermajority of grumpy old white guys.
Well, they've got the majority of grumpy old white guys.
Not the supermajority to take over the whole government.
Okay, within that constituency, they probably have a supermajority.
As they would frame it, to retake our country. Okay, they don't have that supermajority, and that drives them crazy.
Well, they know they can't get it. They know they can't.
I'm
they know
not
it's
sure
not
they
out
know
there.
that.
Well,
they're not acting.
Karl Rove knows everything.
They're not acting like a part. Oh yeah, really.
When it comes to politics, the guy gets it. He understands politics.
We remember his great prediction of 2012, right? I mean, obviously, if you're a political professional, you know that an incumbent with an 8% unemployment rate can't possibly get reelected, right? No, only if you put the biggest slug in opposition to him that you can find. A out-of-touch, insulated, isolated billionaire.
Yeah. Well, and the Democrats did that back. Well, I mean, John Kerry wasn't quite that isolated and out of touch, but he certainly did not resonate.
I thought that, in 2004, if there was some talk, and there was frivolous talk, I know that, but there was some talk about a John McCain, John Kerry bipartisan ticket. And
that was frivolous entirely.
But that was the greatest.
What do they have in common other than the name John and their U.S. senators? That's it.
And they both served in Vietnam, and they could have healed the breach of a generation. But in our political system, it doesn't work like that anymore. I would have been happy with either one as the president and vice president. I didn't care. But I saw that as this country's greatest hope. And you know what happens when you see the greatest hope? It doesn't happen for you. It just goes away because it was far too sensible. It was far too reconciling. It was far too pragmatic.
Yeah.
So they went with John. I still don't really understand how George W. Bush got reelected.
Against Kerry?
Yeah.
Oh, I do entirely. For the same reason that Barack Obama, John McCain was a little bit of a different candidate, but bumbling. And the huge mistake of selecting Sarah Palin. But your characterization of Mitt Romney, yeah, right on. But John Kerry is a bit of a Mitt Romney light, if you will. I mean, I know Democrats don't want to hear that, but here's a guy who's very wealthy, and when you meet him, very aloof. I mean, it was not comfortable.
So basically, he didn't
play
well on TV.
He didn't play well in person.
Have you met him in person?
Yeah. And talked to plenty of other political operatives who had more time with him than I did.
Maybe
he's very aloof.
He would have done.
He's
better.
very dismissive
Maybe
of average people.
Maybe he would have done better in the 19th century in the age of newspapers or something.
Well, yeah.
And only rich people could buy newspapers.
Right. Well, but again, I'm saying the electorate prefers people who seem to be more like them. Obama
point,
or George W. Bush.
My point, Ed, is that the 2013, the Republican Party, yeah, you have some guys who realize they got to do some pragmatic stuff, but in their heart of hearts,
they don't want to, but they have to.
No, they don't have to. They can keep on bumbling along. There's no law written in the sky that says they have to.
If they want to win, they will.
Well, maybe they like the way things are.
No political party wants to lose.
They already have. They already run a control over the political narrative in this country. They've already forced Barack Obama to the right as far as he's probably going to go. I mean, Barack Obama actually put the New Deal and the Great Society on the negotiating table in order to get a quote-unquote grand. I mean, that's not too shabby for the Republicans for a minority party. I mean, what Democratic president has ever done that?
Richard Nixon.
Yeah, well, Richard Nixon was the last liberal president of the United States.
Oh my gosh, folks! Ron Yarnell with me here. You're welcome to join the conversation. Don't let Ron and me do all the talking. Especially don't let Ron do all the talking.
I was going to say something about you.
What? Oh, were you really? Okay.
Don't let either of us do all the talking. This is like the line
from Car Talk. Don't drive like my brother.
Yeah.
And the other side says, don't drive like
my brother. Frank, where are you?
No, do not summon up the wrath of Frank from Des Moines. We can let that sleeping dog lie.
Did he call this week?
No, he hasn't called in a couple weeks.
Oh, come on! We gotta let Frank out and play.
He's probably wrestling with his
maybe he
revelations
was on the
inner liberalism.
He was on the march to Washington.
He could have been on the march to Washington.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit more about the march on Washington. We're going to kind of leave the GOP behind, get a broader sense of what this means. We got a few other issues to talk about as well. Kent Sorensen, new trouble. Sorry, very sad for you. Branstad, on the interviews done by the Judicial Commission of two candidates, I mean, bizarre stuff. I want to talk about that, Ron. Church and state stuff. You love that sort of thing. Abortion has again become front and center in Iowa just this week. We'll talk a little bit about that, even if Ron doesn't want to. And we'll talk also about the fact that Iowa's nursing homes are ranking really high in terms of ranking really bad. I want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Great March for Climate Action for sponsoring the Fallon Forum. And I want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway, you've been there, of course, Ron. Yeah?
Yeah.
Gateway Market, yeah. All right, I think Ron was starting to fall asleep there.
No, I was consulting my notes.
Consulting his notes, good. Yeah, Gateway is a great place, folks, and they support a lot of local farmers, a lot of local producers.
Buy the breakfast burrito. You won't have to eat lunch. I'm telling you right now.
Buy the breakfast burrito. You won't have to eat lunch. Advice from Ron.
Unless you're having lunch at Gateway, and then you should have lunch. But
I'm a fan of the Eggs Benedict myself.
Breakfast
I
burrito.
kind of fluctuate between the Gateway Market's Eggs Benedict and oatmeal. The oatmeal is good.
The breakfast burrito is just a gift that keeps on giving.
Classic oatmeal. It's oatmeal with craziness.
And you know what? The coffee is pretty good too.
I don't like coffee, so I'll take your word for that.
I drink the decaf and I like it.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, Gateway Market and Cafe, folks. Yeah. I also want to thank two of our Newton businesses. Dan Kelly's real estate business, and also Dan Kelly, a state rep, also has a DJ service. So if you'd like to hire a DJ for your wedding and to go along with that DJ,
Dan Kelly spins the wax. That's Max.
He's been doing that for a long time. He's a very straight-laced character.
But he knows how to do that. On his off time, he's a hip-hop kind of guy?
I'm not trying to go that far.
Okay.
But he's been doing weddings and other functions for years.
I like people with alter egos.
His mom has a great business. Diana has a great business called Diana's Wedding Cakes. And again, not just wedding cakes, but cookies, cupcakes. I would love to see if I might buy a pie someday. Maybe Maddie, you can come in or you can hold Ron down while I put a pie in his face. Wouldn't that be fun?
I think we want to put a pie in Ed's face.
All right, sure we do. All right, I'm sure you're probably right.
In fact, I think I can double our viewership that day if we.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, and ruin my fine hair. Okay. Anyway, we're going to come back in a couple minutes. We got plenty more conversation.
We'll give you a plastic skull cap or something.
Oh, thank you. That's very much appreciated. We'll be back in a couple minutes, folks. And again, you're welcome to join the conversation at any time at 244-0077 or toll free. It's 855-244-0077. Be back shortly.
Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 101 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. This segment of the Fallon Forum, sponsored by the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. We are going to talk about a little bit more about the March on Washington, and then we got some other ground to cover. Ron, we've been kind of talking about the GOP angle on the March on Washington, or more accurately,
There was no angle other than absence.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, or the lack of any angle. But
They could have sent someone to stand up there and say, yeah, you know what? MLK did the right thing. The March on Washington was justified. But today, really, the Democrats have become so establishment, they're not meeting the needs of minority people. You should consider the Republicans. But they can't conceivably do that. They can't even fake that. They won't even fake that. They have such distinct. And the thing that annoys me is they consider themselves a party of quote unquote real Americans. That was Sarah Palin's line, right? Real Americans. I don't know what their real America looks like. I've never been to it. I've never been any place that's that apparently privileged and white as these people exist.
you need to get out more, Ron. But anyway, beyond
I gotta stop hanging out with you or something.
yeah, right. Beyond the GOP non-story relevant to the March on Washington, what is the story? What is the takeaway from this big occurrence? Lots of press coverage, great attendance, big news. What's your takeaway?
You know what? In 1963, the Democratic Party, which at that time was the majority party, they were not fond of the March on Washington.
No. So the South was Democratic.
And John F. Kennedy did not want civil rights to mess up his agenda. His hand was forced basically because he needed to look good to Khrushchev. He didn't want to sit down with Khrushchev and have Khrushchev slap a picture on the table with police dogs attacking civil rights protesters
I'm not
in
sure.
Alabama.
I'm not sure I'd say that. I mean, again, Kennedy was an Irish American, and his Irish roots are pretty strong. And anybody who has any strong connections to Ireland knows what a horrible thing discrimination is in that country.
Okay.
I think they can have some empathy
Ed,
for the African American community here.
Both of us have familial connections with Irish America, and we both know the extensive love that Irish Americans have always had for African Americans.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I'm
being facetious.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I remember when I was a kid in Ireland. Boy, racial. I mean, in the part of the country where I would hang out, they never even saw a black person, and they were very it was very prejudiced. There's no doubt.
They probably had a better attitude than the Boston Irish.
Well,
even though ironically,
maybe
the caricatures, the stereotypical caricatures, traditionally towards the Irish and towards African Americans have been very nearly identical.
What I'm saying is Kennedy is a man of some education, worldliness, and yet having that
he was leading a party.
He had that perspective. He had that too, but he also had that perspective as somebody who understood from an Irishman's point of view discrimination, who could probably tie that in with the discrimination experienced here. So I don't know whether he was intentionally trying to
and I think
avoid it.
I think that was more blatantly happening in '68 with Robert Kennedy, that there was a common ground. And I know that's
become more politically comfortable.
I know that's a sensibility that, for example, in Iowa, the Irish Catholic nuns in Dubuque, greatest women there are, they are very on the cutting edge of things like working against racism and working for civil rights and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on from that. I mean, again, just the final question I want to ask: what is the broader takeaway from this 50-year celebration of the March on Washington?
Racism is bad.
Okay, that's a no-brainer. There's got to be something.
Not in some places. Not with Steve King and others. He's made a career out of taking advantage of racism. But well, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, when you have an African American as the president of the United States, things have changed in the last 50 years. On the other hand, what's disturbing is when you look at the subtext of the people who are opposed to Obama, no one goes on record opposing Obama for his ideas. It's for what they state are his ideas and also who he is as a person. So that concerns me that that level of subliminal racism is still prevalent.
Yeah, and I would say I had three takeaways from this. One, yeah, we still have a ways to go. I mean, let's celebrate the fact that we have made great progress. We still have a ways to go. And yeah, there is still, as you call it, some subliminal racism in our society. No doubt about that.
Not just a some, there's a lot.
Okay, but there's a lot less than there was. And we've made a lot of progress. And I think this is kind of a look at that, but also a realization that we still have a ways to go.
Well, we're always going to have a ways to go. In some ways, I guess that the political establishment embracing Martin Luther King and embracing the March on Washington might be disturbing because the political establishment will bend it for their own purposes. Right. And the March on Washington was very much anti-establishment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. But now it is. But now, well, now it's become. I mean, gosh, even Glenn Beck tries to imitate Martin Luther King.
Doesn't do a good job.
He did a horrible job. But the the other takeaway for me is that
my favorite is when some Republicans say that if Martin Luther King was around today, he would be a Republican.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm like, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, really. No, he may not be a Democrat either, though. I don't know.
The genius of Martin Luther King Jr. was that the good Reverend Doctor did not get himself mixed up in partisan politics. because he saw that as flawed and he saw that as just a way of getting
But
bogged
somebody
down.
has to get mixed up in partisan politics.
He
because
wasn't going to do it.
That's
because-
fine, but somebody has to. Ideally, it's good people,
What
not
he was
schmucks.
able to do, he was able to pressure both parties towards what Lincoln called their better angels.
That's good. Well, the other two things I would say about this, we often get very discouraged. But look at, I mean, Americans still care about justice. I do believe, maybe we disagree, Ron, but I do think that in this country, despite all the problems we see, despite all the lack of action on issues we really do know need to be addressed, deep down inside, Americans still care about their position in the world, and they care about justice.
I would say that most Americans care very deeply about justice, but the dominant system is kind of ambivalent about justice these days. It no longer sees it as a priority.
I would agree with that, but the rank and file American, I
think if you sit down, even with Steve King's much lambasted on this show constituency, if you talk to them across a kitchen table, that conversation would be fruitful.
The final thing I'd say about the March on Washington, the final takeaway I have from it, is that marches work. Again, there are a lot of marches happening now
That's why
around
the establishment
climate.
doesn't want people to have them.
Exactly. Well, I know. Yeah. Look at the extent to which marches were suppressed during the Occupy movement.
But you know what? And looking back, I don't know it's whether because everyone has a smartphone and can videotape stuff. But if you go back to the 60s, I mean, yeah, there was nasty stuff done to suppress Occupy. There was pepper spray in the face. But in the 60s, people were getting shot down in the street.
Dogs and big, powerful hoses.
And National Guardsmen shooting people.
I know. Yeah. It's gotten... the oppression has gotten less violent, less in your face.
I think because with the prevalence of social media, that the establishment just doesn't dare do that.
Yeah. Well, they also probably realized it backfired. I mean, I think the British realized in India that clubbing innocent unarmed Indians walking nonviolently toward a salt plant to occupy that salt plant, they realized that cutting them down with sticks was not a good idea.
Especially when you have an evangelical movement back home prone to progressivism that's not going to like to see those pictures.
Right. Well, again, I think the other takeaway I have is that marches work. A march can be a very, very powerful organizing tool. And that's, again, one reason I'm pretty excited about next year's climate march.
That's why the establishment tells you they don't.
Well, sure, of course they do. Yeah. That's why they tell you they
stay home, watch TV,
exactly,
go on the shopping channel, buy some stuff.
Yeah, if it didn't work, they'd treat it differdifferently. But yeah,
listen to your favorite right-wing talk radio guy. That's politics. Yeah, go that way.
Yeah, that's safe. Hey, Ron, thanks. We're gonna come back. We got more to talk about today. Nursing home violations. Iowa is in the bottom 5. It's not good. Ken Sorensen facing some new ethical charges. Branstad is silent. He should have an opinion. One would think he would have an opinion on what was said by the Judicial Nomination Commission members regarding 2 women who were interviewed for judgeship positions here in Iowa. One was queried on her church affiliation, the other on the covenant marriage commitment. It was a bizarre situation. We also want to talk a little bit about the abortion rally. The anti-abortion, the pro-choice. There we go. The pro-choice rally at the state capitol this week. And maybe there's a few other things we might throw into the mix as well. We'll be back in a few minutes, folks. I do want to thank, again, Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this show. We had this segment, rather. We had Ying Sa on the program yesterday. That's coming up on November 9th. It's a great opportunity to learn how to grow your business. I also want to thank Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust. And I also want to thank the Fighting Burrito just south of Locust on 13th Street,
Does the Fighting Burrito win? Does the Fighting Burrito ever win?
They win every time you go in there and buy a custom-made burrito.
I like the smell of victory.
Well, good. And I like, the owner's a great guy. Matthew Goodman, also a city councilman in Ames, great guy. Does good community work. And again, he has a Fighting Burrito, the original, the flagship restaurant is in Ames. So, hey, folks, check out all the businesses that make this show possible. I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. I want to thank Hawk Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of the Fallon Forum. They're in the East Village, and 90% of what you will eat on Hawk's menu comes from Iowa farms and Iowa producers. All right, so we want to talk about the interviews of two Judicial Committee nominees, two nominees for the position of judge here in Iowa, who the Judicial Commission asked really weird questions of. Questions that many feel are inappropriate. Actually, even the guidelines feel they're inappropriate. Also want to talk about Ken Sorensen, but I'd like to, Ron, I'll let you pick the topic. I also want to talk about the abortion dust-up over the state board's movement toward banning a practice that is increasingly important to Planned Parenthood and to a lot of women who might not be able to make it to a major medical center. But we can pick whichever one you want to start with, Ron. I also got the nursing home issue as well. Gosh.
Didn't the governor lighten up requirements on inspecting nursing homes?
What he did was he vetoed language that would have created more ombudsmen. He has in the past, gone against proposals to pay frontline workers more. And to me, it's no surprise that, and again, he does this even as he takes big checks. I mean, $5,000, $10,000 or more contributions from nursing home interests.
Here's the question I have, and I have this for viewers. Maybe someone will call in with an answer. Why do we hold in such disdain the people who work to take care of people who can't take care of themselves? Why are
because it's bad for profits. I mean, we don't. Yeah, it's. I mean, you're talking about daycare as well. I mean, daycare workers are paid very poorly as well.
I'm talking about correctional officers. I'm talking about nursing home workers. People. I'm talking about teachers. People who we entrust with our loved ones. For some reason, we feel justified to lowball them.
Well, I'd say in that analogy, teachers and correctional officers tend to get paid a lot better than daycare providers and nursing home
clearly
workers.
Clearly, daycare providers in terms of pay are near minimum wage, if not minimum wage.
So are a lot of nursing home workers.
Right, and nursing home workers. And I just find that remarkable that people who mop up the feces, the excrement, the yuck of our loved ones in their dotage, those people deserve to be lowballed. They don't, we're justified in paying them.
One reason is those jobs have historically been performed by women. And, I know we talked about the March on Washington and how much progress we've made in 50 years. Well, it's been almost 100 years since women got the right to vote, and we're still in the process of making progress toward full equality there. And I think this is one example. Those are jobs that have traditionally, in the past, been done by women, and thus they're not valued. Thus they're not compensated appropriately.
And Iowa has a high majority of white people, but in other places, often they're minority women.
Well, even here, a lot of those are minority.
Right. So, and that puts them even lower on the
Sure.
social pecking order. But these are people who mop up the yuck of your loved ones, and yet they get very little respect, and they get even less pay, and then they have to go home and take care of their own families.
Yeah.
To me, that they're worth more than any number of Mitt Romneys or any number of the 1%.
Yeah. John Tapscott characterized, he's been a long time